The bigger question is one, of course, you've dealt with many times here on air. Let's just kind of take the big picture question. Why does God allow these horrible things to happen in our world like we're seeing right now, Don?
Yeah, well, the problem is there is a misconception we all have that somehow thinking, even though the world is controlled by evil, evil should be rational and logical and sensible. It's not.
No.
Evil by its nature is random. It's just chaotic, as it were. God created a perfect world, Genesis 1:31.
Yeah.
He made it very good. The world is not very good now because of sin, because of wrong, and that's what we see. And because of that, as God has allowed humans to, it's interesting, Greg, when a terrible thing happens, and in the insurance policy, it's called an act of God. In other words, God doesn't show up until something bad happens, right? well, how about blaming, fellow human beings for what they're doing? Because humans do have choice, and that's the answer. At the end of the day, they are evil. We're evil in our heart. Jeremiah 17:9, desperately wicked. Each of us, who can know our hearts? That's why we need a change of heart, knowing the Lord Jesus.
And then the latter part of Adriana's question is interesting. She talks about, what about like Job's suffering or persecution in the church in the book of Acts? Let me address the persecution against the church. We think the worst case scenario is persecution against Christians. Well, wait a second. God allowed persecution in the book of Acts. And what did it produce? It produced a stronger, more vibrant evangelistic church. Hey, if the church had its way, they would have had a big holy huddle in Jerusalem, probably never left town. But when the persecution began, really it was already starting, but with the martyrdom of Stephen, and then the emergence of Saul of Tarsus, the Christian killer, the church spread out. And I remember a statement by commentator G. Campbell Morgan. He said, the church persecuted is the church pure. The church patronized is the church impure, end quote. And so we always think, prosperity is the best thing. And we thank God for prosperity and thank God for the freedom we have in our country. But sometimes it's persecution that transforms us from compromisers into lean, mean preaching machines. And so God allows these things and he can use them for his glory.
Yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, well, no, Greg, I read a book as a new believer that really opened my eyes to that. Satan's Masterpiece. And it was Louis Berry Chafer, former president of Dallas Seminary. And he said, Satan's masterpiece isn't the guy in the gutter, the drunk, the down and out person. They know they need help.
Yeah.
It's a person living on the bluff that has everything, that doesn't have the Lord, but has all the money, everything they think they need. They don't need God. That's Satan's masterpiece. And unfortunately with the church, like Laodicea, Revelation chapter 3, this church got rich. And because they lived in a very wealthy community, again, nothing wrong with that. They were trusting that instead of trusting God. So therein sometimes lies the problem.